All right, Mike, we're set for the State of the Union next Tuesday, 9 o'clock, I believe. It's not exactly must-see TV historically, but there are some interesting betting propositions to talk about. I imagine anybody who's found their way here is probably familiar with the State of the Union, but why don't you review for everybody who traditionally shows up?
Sure. So, the State of the Union, obviously, it's a who's who of government officials, Supreme Court justices, celebrities. Basically, people are divided into broad categories. That's what determines their invitation. So, there are well seats, which are usually reserved for people who are basically cabinet level people, Supreme Court justices, joint chiefs, things like that. All of these people, are presumptively invited. In addition to that, you have two boxes. The first one is the First Lady's box. This is reserved for like symbolic people, people who are being honored at the State of the Union. And you also have the Speaker's box, which again, mostly for symbolic people and people who are being honored.
All right. So, for purposes of discussing kind of the wagering possibilities here, I'm going to propose that we divide this up to talking about cabinet members, talking about the president's family, Supreme Court justices, Democrats, Democratic dissenters, let's say people who are in Congress and people who are not, and celebrities. And maybe at the end, we'll say a word about the market for things that he might say. So we are recording this on Friday, and um, right now, Pete Hegseth, is at 98 cents to attend. That's the most likely in the market. So, anyway, are you a buy on Hegseth at 98 cents, or where would you be on that?
I would basically be a buy. I think, it's essentially what I like to think of as a hard lock. I think the probability of him not attending is, moderately below 1%, right? So I think there's a bit of a gain there.
Okay. So we both think about this the same way. There are some propositions that are basically locks, and we'll talk about, maybe we'll get to one or two tonight, but over time we'll talk about a bunch of them. So for example, a recent lock, right, was Trump nominated Kevin Warsh to be head of the Fed, and the market remained open afterwards. And so, I bought in at 97 cents. Now that market was triggered by the actual formal submission of the nomination to Congress, which has been delayed for some reasons we discussed. But there's no real uncertainty that Warsh is going to be the nominee. So there you're really tying up your money. It's kind of a question of what the opportunity cost of your money is, right? What could it be doing otherwise? Now, we'll talk about this more extensively at some other point. It makes a big difference that Kalshi is giving you interest on what you have on deposit, right? So if you're getting a 2% return on Hegseth over the next 5 days, and you're also getting 3% on your money over that time, so whatever that is, 1/52nd of 3%, right? Because it's only a
Sure.
week's worth. That's still a pretty good return on your money, right? Most people would be happy to get a 2% return on their money.
Sure.
Now, what I'm going to say with Hegseth and with the State of the Union is the question is, how hard a lock is it, right? So there is one uncertainty with the State of the Union, which is the designated survivor, right?
Yes.
So,
Tell us about the designated survivor.
yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
yeah.
sure.
So, in any major event where the cabinet and the president are expected to be present, there's a cabinet level official who's designated as designated survivor. So, this person will not be at the State of the Union. So, the question becomes then, which cabinet secretary will it be?
So Hegseth is unlikely to be the designated survivor. Traditionally, it's a lower level cabinet official like the Secretary of the Interior. If you ever watched the series, Designated Survivor with Kiefer Sutherland, which actually is pretty good. I forgot what cabinet position he had, but he was not Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense or the Treasury. Now, I think with Hegseth, you get, okay, so I'm not going to speak specifically about him. What are the uncertainties you get? So you get some designated survivor uncertainty. You get illness uncertainty, right?
Sure.
And so a little bit later, when we talk about Democratic dissenters, Chris Murphy has stated his intention to go to effectively a counter State of the Union protest that's being organized. Now, once he's publicly stated that he's not going to go and that he's going to attend this protest instead, to me, he basically falls into the lock category. It would be very unusual for him to say, "Oh, I changed my mind and I've decided to go to the State of the Union." Now, if Hegseth gets sick, I mean, he probably still shows up. But if he got really sick, he wouldn't show up. And you'd lose that bet. Whereas if Murphy, who, by the way, you could get 97 cents on the no, so you could get a 3% return on your Murphy money. If Murphy got sick, well, you would still win the bet because he just wouldn't show up to the counter to the protest. Now, so all I say that by way of is locks to me kind of which is more of a lock, right? So you could park, in certain markets, you could park $100,000 in a 99-cent proposition. So to me, Hegseth, yes, is less of a lock than Murphy, no. So, and I'm not going to put $100,000 in this market, but if I did, I would put it on Murphy, no, more than Hegseth, yes, even though I think both bets are overwhelmingly likely to win.
Right. Yeah, you're trying to limit the risk of some sort of externalities, black swan kind of thing. So that makes sense to me.
Okay, let's talk about other cabinet members. All right, Doug Burgum, Secretary of the Interior. So I think he's trading at 80, 84 cents on the yes right now. So would you buy the yes on Burgum? Maybe you'd buy the no? Any position on that?
Well, we recently had a designated survivor who was the previous Secretary of the Interior, right? So the last known designated survivor was from the Interior Department. Now, I was also under the impression that the Department of Interior is low on the secession chain,
Yeah.
but they're actually fifth.
It's fifth. Is
It's
that right?
fifth. Surprisingly, Department of Homeland Security's last, but I don't imagine that that person would be the designated survivor.
On the chain of succession among cabinet
Among
members,
yes,
right? Because
yes,
you
among
get you
cabinet
have
members. Sure.
the president, the
Speaker,
senate, and the speaker are ahead, right?
vote
Okay.
for yeah.
All right. So Burgum, for succession purposes, mediumly high, making you think that which way does that cut for you?
It cuts a little bit in favor of him attending. This would be an interesting question to sort of research a little bit more, but which cabinet level secretaries have historically been excluded as a designated survivor?
Right. I mean, I've looked at it a little bit. I mean, you're never going to get the Secretary of State or the Secretary of Defense as the designated survivor. I mean, I just think any it effectively amounts to a bet that he is the designated survivor.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you were told that he is not the designated survivor, then he's 98 cents. He's just the same as Hegseth,
Sure.
right? And so I don't think that there's effectively a 14% chance that he is the designated survivor. But there's enough uncertainty there that it just wouldn't interest me in the market, given that I think there are other propositions here that are priced pretty clearly incorrectly.
Right. Yeah. Some of them being the Trump family.
All right, so
Yeah.
talk about the Trump family.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Trump family. So, the Trump family, they seem to operate as a unit. They make a lot of public appearances together. Notably, in Trump 1, the last State of the Union in 2020, everyone but Barron was present.
So let's set this up and just say who's in the market here.
Okay.
Donald Jr. is at 87 cents to attend. Eric is at 84 cents. Ivanka is at 82 cents. Tiffany is at 66 cents. And Barron is at 38 cents.
Right. So all the people you just mentioned, with the exception of Barron, they were present at Trump's last State of the Union, the last one of Trump's first administration. All of them also attended Trump's joint session in March, which is about the best we have for a comparable event. Um, Notably, Barron didn't attend either of these events. And there are some reasons for that, which I can go into.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Barron was studying in NYU, which
Right.
is somewhat removed from Washington, D.C. He was also a minor during Trump's first administration. So now those things have changed. He's now at the DC
I was
campus,
going to say he's at a satellite campus of
right,
NYU,
for
right?
NYU. So he's much more proximate. And he's also 19 now, I believe. So what distinguishes Barron from the rest of the Trump family is basically his entanglement. Up until this point, he's sort of been excluded from the Trump political dynasty, if one wants to call it that, especially with regard to his involvement in the Trump organization. So, whereas some of Trump's other children have very strongly participated, Barron has sort of taken another route.
So
So,
I just want
yeah.
to frame this for a second. So you're pushing, are you pushing to buy on Barron, or is it a buy, or is it a pass?
So, I mean, at the current price,
It's 38 cents.
it's 38 cents, yes.
38
38
cents,
cents,
yes.
yes. I think he's not going to attend, but I think that that's underpriced. I think it's much closer to a coin toss.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a 50-50 proposition.
Right. But the thing I was going to mention
Hmm.
is that Barron, he's not involved with the Trump organization. He just started as a co-founder or director, his own beverage company. Presumably, he's busy with his studies at NYU. And he's always sort of been categorically distanced in a way that the other Trump children haven't been, right? So then I also start to think, well, if Barron comes, is that going to be like a show stealing moment? Is that really, the impression that Trump wants to have at the State of the Union?
I mean, I've just interpreted his absence from the public eye as just his age. I mean, I think, many politicians, many presidents, Trump would be more conventional in this regard of just trying to protect their kids from, obviously his older kids, he does not protect from this, but
Mhm.
just protect them from the spotlight. Barron was involved in his campaign this time. Barron's credited with having turned him on to some conservative podcasts that Trump was perceived as having done well on. Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. To me, this is a more interesting question about how you approach this. So, if Barron is at 38 cents and you actually think he's a 50-50 proposition, right? So, if you were right half the times on things you were getting 2-to-1 odds on, you'd make a ton of money. Do you like a bet like that? Like,
It's a good question. I tend to like a bet like that where there's more of an interval between, the bet and the event, because I think prices can sort of fluctuate, especially early as the market's trying to arrive at, an efficient price, let's say. So at this stage, I wouldn't put my money on Barron either way, but I do think ultimately he's not going to attend. He just seems so much more insulated from the Trump enterprise. I understand he's had some marginal impact with the campaign, but I don't think that really changes the extent to which he's, you know, meshed in with the Trump.
uh, now,
Yeah.
to me, the interesting issue with that is, I thought this is the way I approach things like that. So I'm interested the amount of time between. So if this were 3 months out from the event and he was at 38 cents, and I thought it was really the real fair price was 50 cents. Okay. So I might be drawn to that. Now, to me, I divide my bets into, they're either bet and holds, where I think the thing I'm betting on is going to happen. So I have a big bet. We'll talk about it another time on kind of the Supreme Court decisions that are going to come out at the end of the term.
Right.
We can cover that in a
Sure.
couple of weeks. And there are a couple there that I'm very confident of the outcome on.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to hold them. And if I lose, I'll be out a fair amount of money. That's all right. Now, I feel differently about a situation where I think sometimes, so for example, you were kind of long on the shutdown in the sense that you thought the shutdown would go on longer,
Right.
as was I, not as strongly as you. But there, and I think this was true for you too, I really have no idea how many days precisely the shutdown is going to last, right? No one could claim to know that. I had a strong view it wouldn't last, it would last more than 5 or 7 days just because Congress was all gone,
Right.
right? But would it last 60, 90, 180? When you get out to situations where both sides have really dug in, it's hard to it's hard to predict with any precision when it's going to end. But my bet was that the market would come to understand that it was going to last longer. And I just have some bets on the longest propositions, which I will sell
Right.
at a certain point. So that's a very different thing than a bet and hold. So I have no confidence that the shutdown will last 90 days. I have a thought there that the perception will be in a week from now that there's a chance, a greater than 10% chance, and I bought it at like 5 cents, that the shutdown will last longer.
Mm.
So I don't love the Barron Trump. There is nothing that's going to change in the public perception of whether he's likely to attend, unless he announces it or not, in which case it's the same as a bet and hold. You've just lost or won,
Right.
right? And I'm not drawn to bets like that in a universe where you have effectively infinite choice of bets.
Totally understand what you're saying. I think the Barron Trump market and the how long is the shutdown market going to last really illustrates what I'm talking about when you think about price realization. So Barron has been on the market, so to speak, for a while now. And like you said, these prices are not liable to change drastically except on very new and relevant information. Whereas, as you pointed out, with the market for the shutdown, it's only been, what, 5 days since the market's been up? 6 days?
I think
Something like
today was
that?
the fifth day. Yeah,
Yeah, so
I just cashed in my longer than 5 days bets.
okay. So yeah, since it's so new, the market hasn't really had this price discovery function happening. So we can kind of weigh the evidence in what we think of as an objective manner to sort of think about where's the momentum in the market trending, right? Um, and when you have a market that's new like this, you can have significant price action, not based on any new information, just
You're talking
based
about the
on
shutdown
the
market,
shutdown
when the
market.
shutdown market
Yeah,
emerged.
it's not really based on new information. It's just the digestion of already extant information. And that process takes a while. And it already, for Barron, the price has basically been realized, what I would call the objective price. It's a little bit off. But some of these shutdown markets, I mean, I've basically doubled my money in 5 days, right?
So, but you're saying that in the early stages of the shutdown market,
Well,
what is it you think that that there isn't perfect information, that people are, there's some facts that aren't known, or that they're misperceiving some things? Like what did you think your edge was initially?
I thought my edge was basically looking at the already existing information comprehensively, not acting on impulse. You got to understand, I think a lot of traders in these markets, they do sort of minimal research and then they act on the basis of their gut. So it's sort of like half and half. But if you're somebody who really is tethered to the evidence, and certainly if you don't let your own sort of ideological predisposition take control, then you can outmaneuver market participants by comprehensively researching information
But
initially.
you just thought the shutdown was likely to last longer because, like, what evidence did you think you had an edge on there?
Right. So I tried to think through the proposition in terms of what would be the consequence of a protracted shutdown. So this shutdown is qualitatively different than previous
Completely
shutdowns.
different,
It's a
completely different.
partial shutdown,
That's
right?
right. It's a much lower stakes gamble for the Democrats.
Right. It's a lower stakes gamble, but also what's at stake for both parties matters a lot.
A great deal.
Right. So
I mean, it's actually, sorry. I mean, it's a hill the Democrats might die on. I mean, I have a small amount of money on the longer than 90-day proposition.
yeah, which I think is smart because it could easily double or triple.
Yeah, I don't think that's implausible,
Right.
right? I mean, I won't hold it just because it's I'm not convicted that it'll be greater than 90 days, but I think your core insight there is right. Now, let me transition to talk about something. Folks spend time with us. You and I are very much on the same page about this. So just kind of about, so we are, I would say, pretty much the opposite of emotional investors. Um,
Emotional. I'm an emotional person, but not an emotional
that
investor,
might
right?
be, that might be true.
Yeah.
But, in this universe, we're like, autistic, Vulcan robots.
Yes, that's the goal.
Right. Now, so one thing Michael and I do is and he this is coming to mind because I wanted to talk about Supreme Court justices. So, I'm by training partially a Supreme Court historian. I'm a lawyer. And actually, when I was a litigator, I always used to say, I thought like my best skill was predicting the outcome of like motions and cases. So in some ways, this market is like a
Gone.
dream for my skill set. Okay, now I don't know if I ever would have said that I was an expert in predicting whether Supreme Court justices would show up at the State of the Union.
Mm.
But so we'll talk a lot about heuristic biases that people fall into. If you're here, I have a feeling there's a chance you've read it, but if you haven't, you really should read Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, and it'll change the way you regard the mistakes that your brain leads you into making. So, Anthony Kennedy is on the list as a 62-cent yes, 38-cent no. Okay. Anthony Kennedy is 90 years old. He's a retired Supreme Court justice. Anthony,
89.
did I say 90? Oh,
Yeah.
approximately 90 years old. Yeah,
Yes,
great.
yes.
And Kennedy is the author of Obergefell versus Hodges, which is the Supreme Court decision that constitutionalized gay marriage. So he's a conservative for sure, but, on the Roberts Court, I mean, might be the fourth most liberal justice. He'd certainly be in the middle. Okay. So I convinced myself, I was like, okay, there's no way Kennedy's going. And so what I think you need to do, so I texted Mike and I was like, okay, tell me why I'm wrong. And he then convinced me that I might be wrong. I certainly think I'm wrong in the confidence that I had that he's not likely to go.
Yeah.
And I think probably, I don't know. If I had a bet here, which I like, 62 cents yes or 38 cents no, I like the no a little more just because he's an 89-year-old and he's expressed some dissatisfaction with Trump. But Mike pointed out to me that he was at Trump's last State of the Union, right?
Right. So I actually looked at basic attendance for the last states of the union and stuff like that. So let's see. Anthony Kennedy, he was present for the State of the Union in 23, present in 24, and he attended the joint session in March, which, he didn't have to do, right?
Well, the March joint session is much more probative of his likely to attend the State of the Union than attending the Biden State of the Unions.
Agreed.
Right.
But he's, I think Kennedy is a safe invitee. I mentioned earlier when we began that every congressional member gets an invitation. Since he's a former as opposed to an active justice, I believe that's the mechanism by which he would have to attend or be in the president's box, which I think is unlikely.
Oh, he's not
But
going to be in the president's
yeah, he's not
box.
going to be in the president's box, right? But it would be permissible for any Democrat or Republican to invite him, given his sort of conservative institutional perspective, but also the libertarian streak, right? Like you mentioned with the gay marriage decision. So I think he's liable to be invited by just about anybody without much blowback.
Okay. I don't think he's going to be there, but I'm persuaded enough that I'm soft on that position. I don't feel confident about it.
Right. And just keep in mind, he makes a lot of media appearances.
And he does. That is true.
So
He had a book come out
Yeah.
recently. He's in the public eye. It's fair.
Yeah, just over the last 6 months, I can see at least 6, media appearances.
Right. And that's where I think the yes, or, the yes comes from, the yes percentage comes from, is that he just clearly still wants to be in the public eye.
Right.
Okay. I do think there are stronger Supreme Court propositions. So,
Just to register it, though, I would slightly prefer the yes over the no at this point.
okay, you're on the record.
On the record.
I don't think either of us are prepared to designate this a free money alert. Okay, Neil Gorsuch is in at 67 cents. Gorsuch is a extremely conservative and reliable supporter of the Trump agenda in the Supreme Court. But the one I'm going to focus on, I don't know if you want to say anything about Gorsuch, but Ketanji Brown Jackson is in as a 37 cents yes, 66 cents no. I don't think Ketanji Brown Jackson is going to be at the State of the Union.
No, neither do I. But just a point on Gorsuch. So
Hmm.
the State of the Union for Trump 1, he was in attendance, and he also attended, Biden's last State of the Union.
Yeah.
So he has some record of attendance.
So actually, I mean, they're interesting. I think the prices are off on both. So Gorsuch feels to me like he's around 90% to be there. I actually can't really come up with a reason why he wouldn't be there.
Well, he was present for Biden's final State of the Union, but
Okay.
the preceding 2, he was not.
Okay. So he just might not like to show up to. I mean,
Right.
there's no expectation. The Chief Justice is often there. The Chief Justice is more commonly there than not, but there's no expectation that all of the other justices are in attendance. And, there are some people like Clarence Thomas. I just think, well, he might, but he doesn't regularly go, and it's just they're old, so
Yeah.
they want to
Yeah.
go. They don't want to be out that late. I don't want to be out that late. Nobody's inviting me. Okay, now I think the chance that Ketanji Brown Jackson is there is way sub 5%.
Yeah, I'm basically in the same ballpark, 5% or less, sure.
Okay, so this one to me is, it's a clear bet the no and hold.
Right.
Okay. There is going to be, it's actually in the kind of time that the market has to process this information. I can't even hypothesize what could happen in the news that would change this price. She will never announce that she's going to be there.
Right.
She's a Supreme Court justice. There's just no, she was at the Grammy Awards and there was light criticism of her for having attended the Grammy Awards.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Not really substantive. Yeah.
I just don't see her sitting there. I just don't see it. Now,
Right.
having had this conversation, I'm in on, mediumly heavily on Brown Jackson not being there. I hadn't bet on Gorsuch, and now sitting here and talking to you about it, I'm like, I think it's probably worth a small yes at that price.
Yeah, what did we say he's at?
He's at 66.
Yeah, I would yep, I basically agree with you there.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but thinking about Jackson, so if she doesn't attend, it won't be through, like, intrinsic lack of interest in States of the Union because she was there for Biden in 23 and 24. She didn't attend the joint session though, even though, like you pointed out, I mean, Roberts, Kavanaugh, and Kagan were there for the joint session. So
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know. You can't bet the house on something like this because it's, you'd have to hear what her private rumination on this is, whether she sees it as an act of duty or not. But
yeah,
I feel fairly confident that she is not fond of
right. But she
the
hasn't made
president.
any, and I mean, of
Of
course, a
course,
Supreme
she's a
Court
Supreme Court
justice
justice.
wouldn't. But yeah, she seems legally opposed, but there's no real evidence that she's hostile to Trump. One just presumes, right? But I think it's probably a fair assumption,
I
though.
think we could say a little more than that, but
Yeah.
not that much.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about Democrats on the list.
Yeah.
Okay, you wanted to talk about Al Green?
Yeah, ultimately, but I think we should sort of frame it in terms of the, boycott that's, underway.
Okay, so there's a State of the Union, effectively a boycott that's counter programming event that's going to be held on the National Mall. I think a dozen Democrats have committed to attending so far, including Ed Markey from Massachusetts and Pramila Jayapal from Washington.
Mhm.
So Murphy's committed to that. So I think that makes Murphy a lock. He is a 97 cent no. On this one, I mean, if I were playing with $100,000, I mean, I might put $50,000 on this one. I mean, I'd bet a significant part of my bankroll on it. I can't see any way it doesn't reverse.
Yeah. Nah, I mean, I'm with
Any
you.
way it reverses.
Well, I know what you
Right,
meant,
right, right,
right?
right.
But yeah, I don't see it either. It's just the illness thing. It would be funny to sort of
Yeah, but if he's sick, he still doesn't go.
yeah, I'm
Right?
sorry. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah,
The
that's
illness
what you
thing
were
is,
pointing at.
yeah,
Yeah,
Hexeth,
yeah.
like
Exit.
we're rooting on the no is I'm rooting for illness. Then
Gotcha.
I
Yeah.
don't care if he doesn't make it to the. Um,
No, so yeah, sorry about that. Then it seems like a
it's okay.
lock, basically, right?
Yeah, it's a better lock than Hegseth.
Right.
It really is.
Except could get sick. Yeah, yeah.
Although interestingly, since we've been on, Hegseth's price has dropped a cent.
Ooh,
Um,
big action.
yeah. Well,
Oh,
I
it's
mean, there's a
significant
big
for a
difference
lock.
between a
Yes.
2, 3, and 4% return.
Right, right.
Um, okay,
And we can get the, algorithm.
Ilan Omar. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
You were going to say something about Omar? Or no?
Well, no, we're just going to talk about her. So she's a 93 cent. Yes. Where are you on that?
I haven't researched the
Oh,
question that much, just sort of.
oh, I thought you had a strong position on Omar. Sorry,
Nah,
sorry, sorry.
nah, I don't.
Okay. So Ray Omar was asked at a Minnesota town hall recently. It's a long question, and basically one of her constituents just says, why don't all of the Democrats boycott the State of the Union?
Yeah.
But she kind of gives an answer. She gives, it's the people's house and we need to be present.
Mhm.
So she has not committed to attending she's not committed to attending the counter programming event in the National Mall. And she sort of said okay, delete short of. She's said that she views an obligation to go. I'm still not buying at 93 cents. So like I just don't know in all the propositions here.
Sure. I mean, I always think, Democrats can sort of be swept away by some moral position. So if the boycott were really to take off, then the pressure on Omar could increase not to attend. Do you know when this boycott was kicked off?
Oh, it's the same. It's going to be opposite the State of the Union. Oh, you mean
Yeah,
when it
but
was
when was
announced?
it announced?
I only read about it a few days ago, but I'm not. I'm not.
Because, if it grows at a high clip,
I read about it.
she might just totally forget her response to the town hall,
I
right?
read about it 2 days ago, which I think is when it was.
Okay.
Um, I mean, I think you have other vague possibilities which are priced in, right? So, which need to be priced in. So, if Minnesota had happened, you know, instead of when it happened tomorrow, I could imagine a boycott. The U.S. could attack Iran. That could happen between now and next Tuesday.
It's a 70% chance in the market.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess everybody still shows up to the State of the Union, but I just feel uncertainty. I mean, if I had to pick between Hegseth at 96 or 7 cents and Omar at 90, actually the S is 93. I mean, it's a no-brainer to me.
In favor of Hexet.
Oh,
Yeah, of
absolutely.
course. Right.
I just, I don't know. I don't want to bet serious money on somebody doing something that they clearly do not want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense. Yeah. She said she's gonna go, but she's certainly not gonna like being there. Yeah.
That's for sure. All right. Al Green.
Al Green. Okay, so what's interesting about Al Green is sort of a counter case to this boycott. So Al Green, famously made a sort of spectacle of objecting to Trump's joint session of Congress. He called them liar, I think.
It's the Democrat version of the UI.
Lie,
Yeah.
right. But it was significant in that he was escorted out by the sergeant of arms. He was later formally censured, but he seems to have staked his reputation on objecting and inciting as opposed to boycotting and distancing, right? So some other things to consider, really the boycott slash protest divide, um, when it comes to Al Green seems to favor objecting as opposed to boycotting, right? So if we think about it, if he were to attend the State of the Union and somehow object, which seems to be on brand for him and something that he'd be interested in doing, what's the practical consequence if he does something like that? Well, it's not going to affect his electability because he comes from a heavily Democratic district in Texas. Censures have sort of lost their institutional symbolic power given, the Trump era. So I don't think there would be any consequence to, for instance, a second censure. And he hasn't indicated yet that he's going to join the boycott. It's something I think he would have already indicated
Right.
by
I
now.
think that's a good point. If he were likely to do that, I think he would have said so.
Right. Um,
So at 61 cents, you're a
I'm
yes.
a buy at 61. I think it's marginally higher than that, in terms of the intrinsic objective probability, right?
That's probably right. Well,
Uh,
I'm going to root for you to win that bet. I'm not going to make it, but
Thank you.
I think your thought process is sound. He's likely to do it.
Yeah.
Um, okay.
So,
All right. Last major category is celebrities.
celebrities. Who you want to start with?
So, I mean, I'll nominate two for discussion. Erica Kirk is at 67 cents, and um, Elon Musk, perhaps you've heard of him, is at 24 cents.
Oh, yes, I've heard.
Okay. Are you buying either?
I think Musk is very unlikely to attend. I think
There's also effectively no chance that he will be there.
right. I would load up on the no. I really would.
Okay.
There's a few reasons. So, just thinking about this in terms of the timeline, right? Musk is introduced as sort of this industrialist that's going to complement the political power of Trump. And there's a big to do about it. And then they famously sort of fall out. At one point, uh, Elon intimates that Trump's in the Epstein files, and Trump counters by basically putting Elon's companies on the line and threatening to withdraw federal funding.
Musk is in the Epstein files.
Right. Yeah. I mean, no. But
Yes, yes.
the most, there was that period of substantial souring and threats. Then we went through a sort of period where they reconciled somewhat. But what was interesting to me is that at the Davos forum, right, when Trump proposes his board of peace, Musk openly sort of mocked that. And that was recently. That was just what, January?
Right.
Yeah. So in order for Musk to be invited, we would have to believe that basically the president tolerates sustained criticism of his positions and would invite somebody who marginally disagrees with him and mocks him, even still, right? It's just not going to happen. It's also unclear whether Musk would accept the invitation at
You
this
wouldn't.
point. Right. So I just think this is, without being a lock, pretty close to, right?
Yeah. It's funny. I hadn't really focused on this one in my thinking, even though I nominated it for discussion. Yeah, the chance of him attending is, I mean, it's way sub 5%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably sub 1%. It's probably zero. So I guess maybe talking this through I might talking this through be more certain that Musk isn't there than I am that Ketanji Brown Jackson isn't there,
It's interesting. Yeah.
which
I
I
think,
hadn't really thought about so much.
right.
Because Ketanji Brown Jackson could reasonably perceive a duty by virtue of her role to attend
Sure.
sometime, and also might want to make a statement of defiance just to say, look, I'm here, there's nothing you're going to do about it.
Right.
Elon Musk has no such obligation.
Yes. Agreed.
And there's just no universe in which he's making a surprise rapprochement appearance at the State of the Union. And if you've ever read his correspondence with Epstein, have you read it?
No, no.
Oh, well, actually, it's relevant to this conversation.
Sure.
So Epstein invites him. I think the United Nations is in session, and he invites him to come to dinner, and he lists a bunch of people. And Musk says, "Oh, that's a waste of time."
Hmm.
And Epstein sort of says, "Well, do you think I'm retarded?" And basically intimates that it's all young women. You did read
Yeah,
it.
now that you've
Right.
described it, I
But
remember.
anyway,
Yeah.
so like, it's hard to imagine. And then, Musk would have to put on a suit, and he's not going to really want to do that.
And I think Trump really has to do damage control around what's happening.
There's no chance.
Right.
It's good we had this
Yeah, you
conversation.
would think if you reintroduce somebody like Musk with Trump's approval rating
Right.
already falling, it's just gonna bring
We
back
got to
this.
delay releasing this a few hours so I can go make a big no bet.
Yes, that the market doesn't catch up.
Okay.
But yeah, Doge was a disaster. The public opinion polling seems to reflect it. And why would we bring back the architect of Doge? Wouldn't happen. Doesn't fit the narrative arc at this point.
All right. Anybody else on the list you want to discuss? I only have one more thing relevant to the State of the Union that I
We didn't talk about Erica Kirk, right?
we didn't.
Yeah. So,
And
my gut check on this is that she's gonna be there.
I also think she's gonna be there.
Yeah, because I think she brings a lot of symbolic value to the table. She's clearly engaged with the idea that she should go around sort of lobbying for Trump and, unfortunately what happened to her husband. So I just don't see any reason why she wouldn't accept. And also, I think it works well optically. Evan's taking my pen optically for her to sort of be there and, generate that kind of, what would you say? Outrage that the right likes?
So I also think she's likely to be there. My uncertainty is based on Trump's narrative at the Charlie Kirk funeral, which differed so greatly from hers.
Okay.
So hers was very admirable narrative
Yeah.
of healing, and his was an familiar narrative of defiance. And so I could imagine I'm going to relate this to something. It'll take a second to say, but I think the connection will be obvious. I worked on a death penalty case in Alabama for several years. And one of the things I had to do, so we were literally litigating an ineffective assistance of counsel claim. So we had to show evidence that the defense attorney had failed to present a trial that could have been presented. And so I went to interview the victim's surviving husband, who was a Christian, and I had been told was against the death penalty. And he was. And I said, "Would you be willing to testify?" And he said, "I don't ever want to think about this again." And I could also imagine that this poor woman might just not want to be a political prop, just might not want her kids to be involved in this. I don't know.
I mean, I could imagine that too, and I haven't checked the record as much as I should have here, but my understanding is that she's spoken out about it a few times at this point, right?
Well, what does spoken out about mean?
I
She's
don't
talked
really.
to, right.
Yeah, but I mean, publicly, she still seems
She's
engaged.
definitely engaged.
Right, to the extent that, like, a really grieving widow who wanted to protect her family as the ultimate goal probably wouldn't be at this point, right? You know what I'm saying? Obviously, she is grieving, I'm not questioning that, but, mm, I think she's still liable to attend,
Yeah.
and she's now the
Yeah, she's the
CEO of
CEO of
Turning
Turning
Point,
Point. Yeah. I
right,
mean,
so
I guess that's
she's taking up the mantle in a way, and it works well optically for Trump.
it feels to me, what is she at? She's at 67%. She's probably more like 80 to 85% likely to be there.
Wow.
I'm going to pass on this one. But I mean, of these two conversations, I can't come up with a, I can't see how Musk is there. I just can't come up with a scenario under which he's there.
Yeah, after this is over, I'm gonna buy Musk. I'm much more confident now too after
Right.
having talked with you about it. So Musk know is
There is an interesting thing here, which I've thought about a lot. And if you were really, is one approach here is to really kind of diversify your risk a lot, right?
mm,
So if we made 20 bets here, and we'll hold ourselves accountable here and report back on what actually happened, but we have a pretty good record. We'll be right a lot more than we're wrong.
we hope.
No, I mean, I I haven't.
Well, the evidence suggests it, and we also hope. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I haven't really ever been wrong about something that I kind of was had very strong conviction
Something you thought
about,
was a
right?
lock,
I mean,
basically. Yeah.
yeah. And so, like, but m- I take a very conservative approach to this. I view this as investing. I don't view this as gambling. And if I do gamble, I mean, I gambled on the Super Bowl and I bet, I think $5 or $3 or
Much
something
less
like that.
interesting the Super Bowl. I don't know why so many people watch it. Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, oh, I won, by the way, on that. Those were just bets on the outcome of the game. And, but I just put that in a different category than all these things. So yeah, I mean, another thing with this is like, this is sometimes hard for people to get there. I play a lot of poker, as you know. Okay. Look, if I get my hand in, ace king versus ace queen, I'm a 70, oh, you played poker. So
Well,
I'm a 70-30 favorite, right? I'm still going to lose 30% of the time, but it's a good decision. Now, in poker, I can post facto
Mm.
evaluate the quality of my bet. Like I can objectively say ace king versus ace queen was a 7-3 favorite. Here, okay, so we're going to say Erica Kirk is going to show up 80% of the time.
Something like that.
And
Yep.
she's either going to show up or she's not. We're never really going to know whether we were right about that unless she takes the highly unusual step of explaining her ruminations about whether to go or not. And we're like, oh, see, she was really on the
Yes, I
fence.
understand what you.
And so
The cards
you
aren't
just
turned
get,
over. Yeah.
right, you just get binary outcomes. And now it is interesting with this. I feel like if I made 25 bets here, I think I'd get 20 of them right. I mean, in part because so many of them are just, dictated. So if I bet Eric and Don Jr. to show up, I mean, I think I'm going to be right. I don't know whether I'm going to make money at that, though, because I just think that it's not knowable a priori. You're only guessing what the actual percentage chance is, right?
Yeah.
So, like, if I bet Ivanka Trump at 83 cents and she shows up, that doesn't really vindicate my thought process. She just showed up.
Right. You don't know
Right.
what the mechanism is. Yeah, I understand.
I would say if I bet somebody at a 1% and they showed up, that would be pretty good evidence that that I was right, that there was a chance,
Yeah.
as opposed to.
Yeah, it's funny. The Trump children and the Trump family, they're all sort of, in my opinion, underpriced. They're approaching a lock and they're at roughly 80 cents for yes. What do you think about that?
It's interesting. Having talked this through, I do feel like Musk is the best bet of that bunch. I don't know why Eric or Don wouldn't be there. They've always been there in the past, haven't they?
Yeah, for Trump's addresses, sure.
Okay, but I can't see any scenario under which Elon Musk is there. So, okay, so maybe I mean, Ivanka, I don't think will be there. I don't feel that that's a sure thing.
You feel that Ivanka will not be there?
I just don't think there's as much certainty about that.
Interesting.
And she's just not as engaged with his universe anymore.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll just say I had one other one to say. Okay, so in the market for what will be said at the State of the Union. Okay.
Is this the State of the Union is strong bet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every president who has delivered a State of the Union, with one exception,
Who's the exception?
it's Gerald Ford,
Interesting.
said the State of the Union was weak. And we saw what happened to Gerald Ford. This is as close to a certainty as I could imagine. And it's at 73 cents.
Now, question. Have you looked back at Trump's 4 states of the union?
Said it.
He said it in every one.
Said it.
You sure?
I looked.
Okay.
Now, I mean, the way it's worded there's some uncertainty, right?
It's funny because I think the uncertainty comes from if Trump mid-sentence decides to stumble
That's
or
correct.
elaborate or go on a rant, right? So he could say the State of the Union is, it's pretty good, it's very strong, right? Like he
But
could say something like
here's
that.
why I think this one is a lock.
Okay, go ahead.
He loves the word strong. It is his defining, is the lens through which he views all politics
It's a good
as
argument.
projections of strength. So if I would feel more ambivalent about this is if it said the State of the Union is sound.
Sure. He's not going to use a word like sound.
Well, I'm saying
relative to
the
strong,
State
right?
of the Union is robust. The State of the Union is what if historically it had just been that people said our union is thriving or something like that.
Right.
I could see him departing from this, but it's his favorite word.
It is.
It's his favorite word. Every president except one has used it every time. He's used it every time. He's going to say it.
I think he's very likely to say it.
Well, okay.
I don't know that it's a lock, just because I'm so worried about some kind of tangential, excited utterance, or him even saying the state of America is strong, right? I mean, there could be some kind of variation, even after you've researched the question.
Sure, there's always some uncertainty. I think the true odds on this are in the 98 to 99% range.
I would put it at 90. Yeah.
Okay. And he will either say it and we'll never know whether I was right that it was 99% or 90%, or he won't say it and we'll never know that a 1 in 100 shot came in or a 1 in 10 shot came in. We'll just know whether you and I are right a lot of the time.
Yeah.
All right. So we've probably said too much about the State of the Union. When we're back, we'll recap our bets. And how about if the shutdown is still going on, we'll talk that through?
Yeah. That sounds like a good next step.
All right. This
Right.
is Universal Basic Kalshi Guys signing off.